The Force is light and full of shadows.
Before we dive in, check the link in the description if you want exclusive Timelines members-only videos you won't find on YouTube, all on our Patreon. The second Death Star is burning. Anakin Skywalker lies on the floor of the hangar bay and watches his son's face through the only eye that still works. The other is gone. Sidious took it in the lightning. The blue-white arc that peeled the mask away and left nothing but a ruined old man and the smell of scorched plastic. Luke is crying. Anakin can feel that more than he can see it. He can feel everything, suddenly and completely, the way a man feels his heartbeat only when it is nearly done. He tries to speak. It costs him everything he has left. And what he says, when he finally says it, is enough. Just for once, let me look on you with my own eyes. The son he stole from himself smiles through tears, and Anakin Skywalker breathes out. He expects nothing. Darkness, or the Force, or the simple and complete silence of something finally finished. He has not earned peace, but he has stopped earning suffering, and perhaps that is enough. What comes instead is not light, it is a hand closing around his sternum from the inside, a fist of Force energy, enormous and indifferent, closing on something in him that is not his body. Something older than the suit, older than the name Vader, older even than the boy who burned on the bank of a volcanic river and called it justice. The galaxy begins to run backward. Not metaphorically. He can feel it, star systems unraveling, years compressing, 2 decades of silence and ash folding inward like a map being crushed into a single point. He tries to resist it the way he has resisted everything, with his whole body, with everything he has. He has nothing left. The fist closes. He wakes up breathing. That is the first horror. The breathing is wrong. No mechanical assistance. No filtration. No regulated rhythm set by a machine that decided, 19 years ago, that Darth Vader's lungs were too damaged to be trusted with their own function. Just air, raw and dry and tasting of sand, moving in and out of a chest that rises and falls on its own authority. He is in a bed. The sheets are rough, practical, worn soft by years of use. The ceiling above him is the low sandstone ceiling of a dwelling, built for shelter rather than comfort. There is a window. Tatooine's twin suns angle through it at a pitch he computes instantly, mid-morning, he thinks, before he has consciously decided to think anything, and the light is the specific pale gold of a desert day in the northern hemisphere. Lars' homestead. He knows the geography the way he knows every place he has ever studied to kill in. He sits up. His hands. He looks at them for a long moment without moving. They are in his lap, slightly fisted in the rough sheet, and they are young, not old young, not the young he was when he was 19, and Padme was alive, and the war was a thing with an end he believed in. Younger than that. A boy's hands. Unblemished, unburned, with the slight roughness of someone who works outdoors, but none of the calluses of someone who has killed with them for 20 years. His right hand is flesh. Both hands are flesh. The thing in his chest is not grief. He has no word for it yet. It is the sensation of looking down from a great height and understanding, with sudden total clarity, that the ground is moving. He stands. He finds the mirror. It is a small thing, mounted above a washing basin, and the face that looks back at him from it is not his face, and has never been his face, and is, without question, the face he spent 19 years ensuring would never exist in the first place. His son's face. Young, open in the way of someone who has not yet learned that openness is a weakness. Blue eyes, Padme's eyes, the exact color of a Naboo lake in low light, looking back at him from inside a stranger's skull. The jaw, the cheekbones, the specific quality of confused, searching expression that a boy makes when he is looking for answers and doesn't know yet that some answers are worse than the question. Luke, the vertigo hits him then. Not slowly but all at once, a pressure against the inside of his ribs like an atmosphere change, the kind of shift that takes a man's equilibrium and relocates it 3 meters to the left. He grips the basin. He breathes. He catalogs what he knows the way he has catalogued tactical intelligence for 2 decades. Fast, precise, without sentiment. He is alive. He is inside his son's body. His son, Luke, the boy who was supposed to do this, the boy who died holding an old man's head in his hands while a space station came apart around them, is gone, displaced, removed, or dead again in some way he does not have the theology to articulate. He does not know where Luke is. He knows only that he is here instead, wearing the face and the hands and the borrowed years of a life he was never supposed to get, which means every second he draws breath in this body is a second he has taken from the person it belongs to. The grief and the purpose arrive at exactly the same moment, indistinguishable from each other. He lets go of the basin. He has a war to prevent. He hears them before he sees them, 4, maybe 5, moving in two-file formation along the northern approach to the homestead, their armor's servo joints clicking in the heat. He does not retrieve a weapon. There is no weapon in this room that matters. He retrieves his certainty instead, the still, cold clarity that was Vader's real power, the part of him that survived every defeat and every humiliation because it was not built from hope and could not be broken by its absence. He walks out the front entrance of the Lars homestead. Beru is in the kitchen. Owen is 20 meters to his left, frozen mid-motion between the moisture evaporators, one hand still on a connection cable, watching the same thing Anakin is watching. 5 stormtroopers coming over the ridge with a scanning droid and the specific purposeful stride of men with a list of names. He crosses the distance before Owen has processed what is happening. The first trooper sees him and begins to raise a weapon. Anakin is already inside his guard. He does not use the Force. He does not use a lightsaber. He uses 19 years of institutional violence, refined into something so efficient it barely looks like fighting, more like problem-solving, the kind that leaves very little mess and makes almost no sound. The first trooper goes down with his helmet rotated 11 degrees past capacity. The second takes a strike to the throat, collapses, does not rise. The third and fourth he handles simultaneously, a motion so compact and certain it reads as almost mechanical. The fifth gets the scanning droid between himself and Anakin and fires twice, both shots wide, before Anakin steps around the droid's panicked rotation and ends the conversation. 30 seconds, maybe less. He stands in the silence of the ridge in the morning heat and looks at what he has done and feels nothing that resembles satisfaction. He feels the efficiency of it, the necessity. He picks up the scanning droid's communication module, removes its power cell, and sets it in the sand. When he turns around, Owen Lars is staring at him from 20 meters away, with the expression of a man watching a stranger climb out of his nephew's skin. Owen says, "That's not how a boy fights. Luke." The words land flat in the dry air. Anakin looks at his uncle, the man who kept his son safe for 19 years out of stubbornness and love, and a fear of exactly this kind of moment, and measures his response against everything he knows about what this man can and cannot carry. "Maybe I'm not just a boy anymore, Uncle Owen." Owen doesn't answer. Owen's jaw tightens. Owen's eyes move from the 5 troopers in the dust to his nephew's face, and then back again, making a calculation that his mind clearly does not want to complete. Beru's voice comes from the doorway, quiet, steady, the voice of a woman who has survived decades of desert by never catastrophizing before she has to. "Come inside. Both of you." They go inside. That night, while Owen and Beru sleep with the specific exhausted silence of people who have decided to defer their questions until morning, Anakin sits in the dark of Luke's room and addresses the ceiling. He knows Obi-Wan is close. He has felt the signature of that presence since he woke, familiar the way a scar is familiar, the specific Force presence of his brother, his failure, his best friend, older now and quieter but unmistakably himself. Somewhere in the Jundland wastes, nursing the same tea he has probably drunk for 19 years. Obi-Wan Kenobi is waiting for a farm boy who needs a teacher. What he is about to get is neither. Anakin stares at the ceiling and thinks about the face he saw in the mirror and about the weight of a role he is expected to perform, the restless, eager, achingly young thing that this body was built to contain. And he understands, with a clarity that functions like an injury, that he does not know how to be young anymore. He gave that up piece by piece across 2 decades until it was gone and he didn't notice the moment it left. He doesn't know how to want things simply. He doesn't know how to walk into a room without first mapping the exits. He doesn't know how to be anyone's student. The twin suns are long gone. The desert dark presses against the window, absolute and patient. Tomorrow he will go to the hermit's house in the wastes. And Obi-Wan Kenobi will open the door expecting a boy, and something ancient and unrepentant will look back. The hut is exactly as he remembers it. Not from a report or a reconnaissance file, from before. From the version of himself that still used first names and believed in things. He remembers standing outside this door at 19 with Padme beside him, asking after his mother, Obi-Wan's voice warm, with the particular patience he reserved for Anakin's worst ideas. The door is the same weathered durasteel, the same sand pitting along the lower edge from 2 decades of Jundland grit. The same heat-warped seal around the frame. A man has lived here a very long time and changed almost nothing, which tells Anakin more about Obi-Wan's state of mind than any intelligence briefing could. He raises his hand to knock. He stops. What he is about to do is walk into his brother's home wearing his son's face and perform innocence he has not possessed since he was 9 years old. He turns this over once, the way he turns tactical problems over, looking for the failure point, the seam where it comes apart. There is no clean version of this. There is only forward. He knocks. The door opens in 7 seconds. Obi-Wan Kenobi stands in the threshold with the unhurried stillness of a man who heard the approach before it happened, and has been deciding since then what expression to wear. He has settled on neutral. He wears it the way a soldier wears armor in peacetime, present, practiced, slightly unnecessary. He is old, not decrepit, still straight in the shoulders, still clear-eyed, but old in the way of a man who stopped arguing with time somewhere around the 15th year of a sentence he gave himself. His beard is fully gray, his hands are weathered. He looks at the boy on his doorstep and something moves behind his eyes that he does not allow onto his face. "Luke," he says. Not a greeting. A calibration. "Master Kenobi," Anakin says. The pause is very small. Obi-Wan registers it. He steps aside, and Anakin walks into the hut that smells of recirculated air and old books, and something faintly herbal that Obi-Wan has been drinking for 2 decades, and he does not look around the way a boy discovering a mysterious hermit's home would look around. He sits in the nearest chair. He folds his hands. He waits. Obi-Wan remains standing. He is watching the way a man watches something that has not yet proven itself dangerous, but possesses the right dimensions for it. "You came alone," Obi-Wan says. "Yes, the droids. Outside, R2 is with them. I didn't think they needed to be part of this conversation." Another pause, longer. Obi-Wan crosses to his own chair, and sits with the deliberate ease of a man who has decided, for the moment, to appear at ease. He picks up a cup. He does not drink from it. "You've grown," Obi-Wan says finally. Anakin says nothing, because there is nothing to say to that which is not a confession. Obi-Wan begins with the father. He does it gently, the way he does everything, lateral, careful, wrapping the real question inside a softer one. He asks Luke what Owen has told him about Anakin Skywalker, and his voice is level, and his eyes are not. That he was a navigator on a spice freighter, Anakin says. That he died before I was born. And do you believe that? No. Obi-Wan is still. What do you believe? Anakin looks at the man who stood over him on the bank of a river of fire and said you were the chosen one with a voice full of grief and walked away. And he measures, very carefully, what truth costs in this moment versus what performance costs. And he says, he was a good pilot. Better than good. The best in the order. He pauses. He could see things before they happened. He cared more than was practical, and he failed in a way that was entirely his own, not because he was corrupted, but because he was afraid, and no one taught him what to do with that. The cup in Obi-Wan's hand is motionless. That's very specific, Obi-Wan says quietly, for information Owen Lars would have shared. Owen Lars didn't share it. Then who did? Anakin holds Obi-Wan's gaze. Experience, Master Kenobi. Some things you know without being told. The silence in the hut is a presence. Obi-Wan sets the cup down with the care of a man handling something fragile. His eyes have not moved from Luke's face, and they are doing the work of a man who is good at this, good at reading people, at accounting for what doesn't fit, and who is finding, for the first time in a very long time, that something doesn't fit. His jaw moves. He almost says a name. He stops himself. He retrieves the lightsaber from a chest beneath the sleeping platform. He doesn't make a ceremony of it, just lifts the box, opens the lid, sets the weapon on the low table between them without explanation. The hilt is exactly as Anakin last touched it, cylindrical, worn at the grip, heavier in the hand than it looks. A Jedi's weapon, his weapon. He built it at 19, in the weeks after Geonosis, replacing what he had lost in the arena, and he spent years learning what it meant, and then lost this one too in a river of molten rock, along with everything else. Obi-Wan says, "This belonged to your father." Anakin does not move for a moment. He reaches out and picks it up. The weight settles into his palm the way a bone settles into its socket, the specific cellular recognition of something that was always supposed to be there. He does not perform discovery. He does not turn it over with the wide-eyed wonder of a boy encountering a relic. He holds it the way a man holds something he thought he had lost the right to, which is carefully, and with both hands. He ignites it. The blade is blue. The specific blue the crystal chose when it bonded with him at 19, not his selection, though he had always taken it as something meaningful, as though the Force had decided what color hope looked like, and pressed it into the stone. It hums at a pitch he knows it the way he knows his own heartbeat's cadence, which is to say he would know it in a room full of noise, with his eyes closed and one ear gone. He moves into the first form of Gemso without deciding to. It is not a performance. It is not a conscious choice. It is muscle memory running 30 years deep. The Form V sequences he drilled 10,000 times before he was old enough to shave, the opening stance Obi-Wan taught him in a training room on the Negotiator, with the patience of a saint and the exasperation of a man who loved a student, who learned too fast and listened too slowly. The sequence lasts 4 seconds. He stops. He looks at Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan has gone completely still. Not the practiced stillness of a moment ago. This is different. This is a man who has encountered something that has removed his ability to perform. His face has gone the specific gray of someone whose categories have just failed them. He is staring at the blade, at the hands, at the stance that is not a farm boy's stance, and has never been a farm boy's stance. And he is doing a calculation that his mind appears unwilling to complete, because completing it requires accepting something he buried 19 years ago on a planet that no longer exists. He does not speak. He does not move. For a long moment the only sound in the hut is the lightsaber's hum, and it is the sound of everything Obi-Wan Kenobi has refused to think about, for 2 decades standing in his living room asking to be acknowledged. Anakin extinguishes the blade. R2 whistles from outside, 2 short, agitated pulses, the signal Anakin programmed into him in another life to mean incoming transmission. He rises before the sound has finished and crosses to the door without excusing himself, because a boy would excuse himself, and what he is now does not have patience for the performance. He takes the projector from R2's dome. The hologram resolves into a girl. She is young. She is composed with the specific composure of someone who has trained themselves to project calm in front of a recording device while being very afraid, and she is beautiful in a way that has nothing to do with aesthetics and everything to do with the specific bone-deep recognition of someone who is yours. She has Padme's jaw. She has his eyes. She does not know any of this, and in this timeline, she will not know it for years. She says, "This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope." The recording ends. Anakin does not move for a breath. 2 breaths. 3. The feeling in his chest is not describable in tactical language. It is the specific sensation of something enormous shifting. Not breaking, not collapsing, just moving, the way tectonic plates move, slow and irresistible, and capable of remaking the landscape. He has a daughter. He has always had a daughter. He held her once, briefly through the haze of a dying body and a dying self, and then she was gone, and he spent 19 years not knowing. He knows now. He turns back to the hut. Obi-Wan is standing in the doorway watching him, and whatever Obi-Wan was planning to say, whatever careful, lateral, patient thing he had assembled in the silence, dies when he sees the expression on the boy's face. Not grief. Not fear. Something older and more certain than either. A man who has just been reminded what he is fighting for. Alderaan, Anakin says. His voice is level, completely level. We leave tonight. Obi-Wan studies him for a long moment. The question he doesn't ask sits in the air between them, unanswered, enormous. You move. Obi-Wan says finally, quietly, like someone who has already fought this war. Anakin holds his gaze. Everyone has. Master Kenobi. He clips his father's lightsaber to his belt, and the gesture is so automatic, so completely without self-consciousness, that Obi-Wan's breath catches audibly. Some of us just remember it better. He walks past the old man into the desert light. Obi-Wan stands in his doorway and watches him go, and does not follow for a long moment, and says nothing. He is the one being led now. He understands that. He is not sure he understood anything else since the boy sat down. Mos Eisley is exactly what it has always been. A failure of urban planning held together by desperation and cheap power cells, sprawling across the desert floor in the specific disarray of a place that grew, without anyone intending it to. The streets smell of machine oil and something organic and unwashed, and the noise is a constant low-register argument between a dozen species conducting a dozen transactions that none of them want recorded. Anakin has been in worse places. He has leveled worse places. He walks through the Cantina district with Obi-Wan at his left shoulder and the two droids trailing behind. And he does not look at anything the way a boy from a moisture farm would look at it, wide-eyed, overwhelmed, recalibrating every step. He looks at it the way a general looks at unfamiliar terrain. Cataloging, feeling, Obi-Wan notices. He has been noticing everything since the hut, and saying nothing about any of it, which is its own kind of statement. The cantina is dim and loud and full of people who have collectively decided that minding their own business is the highest civic virtue. Anakin settles onto a stool at the bar and orders water, which is not what a nervous farm boy orders, and is exactly what a man who grew up on this planet and knows what the alcohol here does to human kidneys orders. The bartender doesn't look at him twice. Obi-Wan drifts toward the corner without being told to, which means he is either reading the room or giving Anakin space to do what he's already doing, probably both. Ponda Baba arrives at his elbow approximately 4 minutes later, right on schedule, with the specific territorial energy of someone who has made a habit of selecting targets who look manageable. He is large, aggressive, and operating under the assumption that a boy at a bar alone is a problem he can solve quickly. Anakin turns to look at him. He doesn't reach for the lightsaber. He doesn't shift his weight or change his posture or do anything that could be charitably described as preparing for a confrontation. He simply turns and looks at Ponda Baba with the flat, patient attention of a man who has made decisions about far more consequential problems this morning and finds this one very small by comparison. Ponda Baba holds eye contact for approximately 2 seconds. He leaves. His companion, Evazan, starts to say something and then makes the same calculation and follows. Anakin turns back to his water. From the corner, Obi-Wan watches this with an expression Anakin doesn't look at, because he already knows what it contains. Han Solo is exactly as he remembers him, which is to say Han Solo is the most aggressively confident man in any room he enters, and he enters the cantina like he owns it, which he does not. But he conducts himself as though ownership is a minor technical detail. Tall, loose-limbed, the kind of handsome that works best when paired with the specific grin he deploys now, crossing to where Anakin sits with the energy of a man arriving at a negotiation he has already won. He sits without being invited to. "I'm told you need passage," Han says. Kenobi's name carries some weight around here. Usually, he tilts his head. "You're younger than I expected. And you're more expensive than I'd prefer," Anakin says. 17,000 is a transport fee, not a transport fee. What does the number actually represent? Han's grin adjusts slightly. He was expecting nerves, or gratitude, or the particular eagerness of someone who needs something. He is recalibrating. It represents, he says, a very fast ship, a very capable crew, and a route that keeps the Empire off our backs for the duration, which, given what Kenobi's mixed up in, is worth every credit. The Millennium Falcon, Anakin says. Kessel Run, 12 parsecs. Han's eyes sharpen. You've heard of her. I've heard the claim. I'm reserving judgment on the parsecs. He meets Han's gaze. 2,000 now, 15 on delivery. If the ship performs, we discuss a standing arrangement. The grin is still present, but it has become a different kind of grin. Less performance, more appraisal. Han Solo is looking at him the way a man looks at a card player who just showed a hand he wasn't supposed to have. Standing arrangement, he repeats. You run cargo? I run operations, Anakin says. Cargo is occasionally involved. Han leans back. He looks at Obi-Wan, who is watching from the corner with the specific expression of a man who has decided to stop being surprised and hasn't quite managed it. He looks back at the boy at the bar, who is holding eye contact with the flat patience of someone who has all day and knows it. Han Solo has never once in his adult life backed down from a negotiation. 15 on delivery, he says. The standing arrangement we discuss after I see what kind of operation you run. Agreed, Anakin says, and picks up his water. The Falcon is in docking bay 94, and she is, as Anakin knew she would be, a barely contained mechanical argument between ambition and maintenance debt. Every system on the ship is either overperforming or failing, sometimes simultaneously. He walks the length of her in the time it takes Obi-Wan and the droids to board, trailing one hand along the hull, plating with the absent focus of a man reading a text. He finds the hyperdrive issue before anyone mentions it. It is in the motivator coupling, a stress fracture in the secondary housing. Invisible to a standard diagnostic, because the fracture only propagates under jump stress, which means the ship will make it out of the atmosphere, and then strand them in the void between here and Alderaan. He knows this the way he knows all mechanical things, directly, physically, as a set of relationships between components rather than a checklist to be consulted. He is under the access panel before Chewbacca realizes he has moved. Chewbacca makes a sound that translates, roughly, as territorial objection. Anakin does not look up from the coupling. The fracture in the secondary housing propagates under jump stress. You'd have made it out of the system and then lost the drive entirely. The fix takes 8 minutes if I have the right coupling seal. He pauses. Do you have the right coupling seal? A long silence. Then a series of sounds that translate roughly as grudging acknowledgement. Chewbacca retrieves the coupling seal. The fix takes 6 minutes. Anakin emerges from the access panel, hands slightly greased, and hands the primary tool back to Chewbacca without looking up. The Wookiee takes it. He stares at the back of the boy's head with an expression that, across species barriers, reads unmistakably as reassessment. Han is leaning against the corridor wall with his arms crossed, watching. He has been watching since the access panel came open. He does not say anything for a long moment after Anakin stands and wipes his hands on a rag from the toolkit. He does not get the last word. He does not try for it. He just pushes off the wall and heads for the cockpit, and there is something different in the set of his shoulders, something slightly less certain than it was 40 minutes ago in the cantina, and Anakin files this away without comment. The jump to hyperspace is clean. Anakin sits in the co-pilot seat because Obi-Wan has retreated to the hold to speak with the droids, and because the co-pilot seat is where he sat the first time he ever made this run, in a body that fit him, in a life that was still salvageable, and he wants to sit in it again for reasons he does not examine. The stars lengthen. The blue tunnel of hyperspace opens around the ship with the specific beauty of something that never stops being beautiful, no matter how many times you've seen it. He is looking at the hyperspace tunnel when the sensor board registers the debris field. He feels it before the sensors confirm it. A disturbance in the force so enormous it has its own weather. A mass absence. A place where millions of living things were present 3 seconds ago and are now definitively not present. And the force is registering that loss the way an ocean registers the removal of a coastline, violently, silently, and without any mechanism for reversal. He grips the edge of the console. He does not make a sound. Obi-Wan appears in the cockpit doorway, stricken, and says something about feeling a great disturbance in the Force. His voice is the voice of a man absorbing a blow he half expected and hoped wouldn't come. Anakin says nothing. He looks at the sensor board. He already knows what the sensors will confirm, because he has lived this moment, has carried this moment in the file of things that happened that could not be changed. And the weight of it in this body, in this timeline, sitting in this seat, is different than he expected. It is not abstract. It is not the distant ache of recorded history. Alderaan is gone. 2 billion people. The archive libraries. The mountain passes Padden described once in the specific loving detail of someone recounting a place that felt like safety. Leia Organa, the man who raised his daughter. Gone. His knuckles are white against the console edge. He releases it. Deliberately he breathes. He catalogues what remains. The mission, the ship, the people aboard. The Death Star that did this and still exists and must be destroyed. He builds the tactical picture the way he has always built it, from the fixed points outward, from what cannot be changed toward what still can. Han glances at him. The grin is absent. "You all right, kid?" The word kid lands with its usual inaccuracy. "No," Anakin says. He looks at the hyperspace tunnel. "But we don't have the luxury of that right now." A pause. "Just heading for the signal. They'll have the princess tracked." We follow the trail back to the source. Han stares at him. "The Death Star," Anakin says. "We're going to find it. And then I'm going to walk us out of it." He meets Han's eyes. "Trust the competence you've already seen." Han Solo, against every instinct and habit he has spent a lifetime cultivating, does not argue. He adjusts the heading. The Death Star pulls them in like a closing hand. The tractor beam locks onto the Falcon with the particular mechanical certainty of Imperial engineering, not aggressive, just inevitable, the way a drain is inevitable once the water is moving toward it. Han runs through his counter-maneuver checklist in the cockpit with the focused desperation of a man who knows the answer before he checks, but checks anyway. Chewbacca's readings confirm what the hull vibration already communicated. There is no counter-maneuver. There is only the beam, and the station at the end of it, growing in the viewport like a moon that someone built wrong. Anakin watches it and feels something he does not have a clean name for. He has studied this station. He has served on this station. He has stood in its conference rooms and watched admirals argue over targeting solutions beneath the Grand Moff's standing orders, and walked its corridors with the specific authority of a man whose presence made other men stand straighter. He knows the schematics with the depth of someone who reviewed them not as intelligence to be exploited, but as infrastructure to be commanded. The thermal exhaust port. The detention levels. The tractor beam controls distributed across 7 generator nodes, each accessible from maintenance shafts built for technicians and useful, it turns out, for Jedi who know where to look. He knows where to look. The Falcon settles into docking bay 327 with a clunk that reverberates through the hull, and before Han has finished his argument about terrible plans, Anakin is already moving toward the cargo bay with the unhurried precision of someone who has measured the time they have and found it sufficient. He takes point without discussing it. This is not a negotiation. He moves through the Falcon's lower corridors, checks the viewport for the Bay Patrol rotation, 12-minute cycle, 2 guards, predictable overlap at the northwest corner, and opens the ramp at the 11-minute mark. The guards are at the overlap point. The bay is empty. He walks out of the ship and across the deck and into the station's service corridor, with the flat, unbroken confidence of a man who belongs here, because in every meaningful sense he does. Obi-Wan follows. Han follows, making a face that expresses his professional opinion of the entire situation. Chewbacca follows, hunching slightly for the ceiling clearance. The service corridor connects to a maintenance trunk that runs parallel to the main detention level access shaft. Anakin knows this because he stood in the detention level 17 months ago, in a body he is no longer wearing, and reviewed the station's internal layout with the thoroughness that Vader always applied to spaces where prisoners might attempt escape. He is now using that thoroughness from the other direction, which is either ironic or appropriate, and he does not have time to determine which. He does not consult R2. He does not pause at junctions. He turns left, then right, then left again, descending 2 levels via a maintenance ladder that is not on the standard crew maps and is exactly where the structural diagrams say it should be. Obi-Wan says, quietly, from directly behind him, "You've been here before." Not a question. Anakin does not break stride. I know the layout. From what source? From a thorough briefing. He rounds a corner, checks the corridor, clear, and continues. The Alliance Intelligence Division is more capable than the Empire assumes. The silence behind him contains Obi-Wan's assessment of this answer, which is that it is technically possible and functionally unconvincing. Anakin files this. He cannot fix it right now. He can fix it later, or not at all, depending on how Dagobah goes. He does not think about Dagobah right now. Detention Block AA-23 is a gray corridor that smells of recycled air and the specific antiseptic used to clean cells where people have been frightened. The sounds are minimal, the hum of containment fields, the distant report of a surveillance droid making its circuit. 2 guards at the central console, running on the particular low-grade boredom of men who have been stationed somewhere that almost never generates interesting work. Anakin comes around the corner and assesses this in approximately 1 second. He drops the first guard before the second one has registered the movement. A precise strike to the nerve cluster at the base of the helmet. Fast enough that the man folds rather than falls, which makes less noise. The second guard turns and opens his mouth, and Anakin is already across the distance, 2 steps, and the second guard joins his colleague on the floor, in the same posture of involuntary unconsciousness. Han stares at the 2 guards. He looks at Anakin. He opens his mouth, closes it, and then takes the console without further comment, which is the most honest response available to him. Cell 2187. Anakin is at the door when it opens, and she walks out with the bearing of someone who has refused to allow captivity to reduce her, which is to say she walks out like a princess, chin up. Eyes already moving to assess threat and exit in the same scan. She is wearing the white of a diplomat. Her hair is done with the specific careful formality of a woman who decided, somewhere in the last 12 hours, that she would not give her captors the satisfaction of looking broken. She looks at Anakin. She says, "Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?" He has taken the helmet off. He is looking at his daughter's face at close range for the first time, in a body that can actually see it, and something in his chest does the thing it has been doing since the hologram, that tectonic movement, slow and irresistible, restructuring the landscape beneath everything else. She has Padme's bearing. She has his stubbornness. She has the specific quality of composed authority that neither of them gave her, that she grew entirely on her own in the years he was not present to see. He crosses the distance and puts his arms around her. She goes rigid with surprise. It is not a farm boy's embrace. It is not awkward or tentative or socially miscalibrated. It is the embrace of someone who has been waiting to do this for 19 years and has found, now that the moment is here, that 19 years of waiting has made it overwhelming rather than simple. He holds on for 2 seconds past what the situation calls for. She pulls back. She looks at him with Padme's eyes and his own expression, that particular narrow assessment. Cataloging and slightly alarmed. "You're stronger than you look," she says. He releases her. He breathes. He says, barely above audible, "You have no idea." She stares at him for a beat that contains a question she doesn't yet know how to phrase, and then Han Solo's voice from down the corridor provides an extremely effective interruption involving stormtrooper response times, and the moment closes. And they move. The trash compactor is a problem he has already solved. He solves it before it becomes one, seals the hatch from the inside with a tool from his belt before the unit cycles, reverses the pressure differential on a panel behind the intake pipe that most engineers don't know opens. Han watches him do this with the expression he has been wearing for approximately 3 hours now, which is the expression of a man whose model of the situation keeps requiring revision, and who has stopped enjoying the process. "You're going to tell me," Han says, "that you knew that panel was there." "I knew that panel was there." "How engineering?" Anakin says. "Specifically, the kind that involves knowing which shortcuts the construction teams take when they're behind schedule." Han looks at the panel. He looks at Anakin. He makes a sound that is not quite a laugh and not quite a curse, and walks away from the conversation, which Anakin has learned is Han Solo's preferred method of processing things he cannot immediately categorize. They are 2 corridors from the hangar when it arrives. Not as a sound. not as a sensor reading. As a weight, a specific gravitational quality in the Force, the presence of something massive and dark and completely familiar, moving through the station at the unhurried pace of a man who has nowhere he needs to hurry to. The signature is Anakin's own, the way a scar is your own, indelible, particular, the shape of everything that went wrong worn into the Force itself over 2 decades of wrong choices. Vader is close. Not at the hangar. Not yet. 2 corridors north, moving south, drawn here by something. The disturbance in the Force of a Jedi operating at full capacity in a station that hasn't housed one in 19 years, probably. The Force doesn't hide things from itself. Anakin stops walking. The group stops behind him. Leia reads the stillness and goes quiet. Han reads Leia and follows suit. Even Chewbacca moderates the sound of his breathing. Anakin's voice, when it comes, is quiet and completely level. He's close. He does not look back at them. He is looking at the corridor ahead, at the junction where it branches toward the hangar. Get to the ship. All of you. A pause. Let me handle this. Obi-Wan says, from directly behind him. Luke, the hangar. Anakin says, now please. He doesn't turn around. He doesn't need to see their faces to know what's on them. He can feel it. Reluctance from Obi-Wan, calculation from Leia, skepticism from Han, and he does not have time to address any of it. He waits until their footsteps are moving away from him and toward the hangar junction, and then he turns toward the corridor that leads north, toward the presence that is his, and isn't, toward the thing he used to be. He rolls his shoulders once, a small and entirely unconscious gesture, the same thing he did before every duel he ever fought in the version of himself that still had that habit. His hand settles at his side, near the lightsaber. Not on it. Near it. He walks forward. The corridor is empty in both directions. Gray durasteel walls, evenly spaced lighting panels, the faint vibration of the station's reactor somewhere below, a hum so constant it functions as silence, background noise the mind stops registering after the first hour of exposure. Anakin has been registering it since they boarded. He registers everything here. The Death Star is a machine he helped build, in the sense that every decision he enforced, every project he oversaw, every engineer he intimidated into compliance contributed to this specific geometry of gray corridors and overlapping kill zones. He is walking through a monument to his own worst years. He finds a junction 30 meters from the hangar approach and stops there. He unclips the lightsaber. He does not ignite it yet. He holds it at his side and breathes and extends his awareness through the Force, the way he extends it before any engagement. Wide, patient, reading the space rather than just the immediate approach. The station's crew is a mass of ordinary fear and ordinary boredom distributed across 30 levels. The officers are concentrated near the bridge, anxious, because the Grand Moff's sensor teams have apparently clocked something unusual in the detention block, and no one has reported in from AA-23. Security response teams are mobilizing on levels 11 and 12. They will reach this corridor in approximately 4 minutes. One signature is moving faster than all of them. It comes from the north, from the direction of the command levels, and it moves with the absolute certainty of something that does not hurry, because it does not need to. It fills the Force the way a collapsed star fills space, dense, enormous, with a gravity that bends everything around it toward itself. The presence of Darth Vader in the Force is not darkness in the poetic sense. It is mass. It is the accumulated weight of every choice Anakin Skywalker made between Mustafar and this corridor, compressed into a living thing that breathes through a machine and has forgotten what it cost to become this. He knows this signature from the inside. The blue blade ignites. Vader rounds the corner and stops. The hesitation lasts less than a second, a fractional pause, barely a missed step. The kind of thing that would be invisible in any other combatant. In Darth Vader, who has not hesitated in 19 years, it reads as seismic. He covers it immediately, sliding back into the forward momentum of a man who pauses for nothing. But the pause happened, and Anakin felt it and files it. Vader is already wrong-footed, and the duel has not begun. They regard each other across 20 meters of gray corridor. Vader's presence in person is different from its presence in the Force. The suit is larger than memory makes it, broader at the shoulder, heavier in its movements, built for overwhelming rather than precision. The breathing fills the corridor in the way that it always fills every space it enters. Rhythmic and mechanical and completely without self-consciousness, because self-consciousness requires a self that is not entirely armored. The red blade ignites in his right hand with the specific sound of something designed to end conversations. He looks at the boy holding Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber in Anakin Skywalker's grip. He says nothing. Vader rarely opens duels with words. He opens them with pressure, a physical and force-based advance that most opponents experience as weather, as something environmental rather than personal, impossible to resist and pointless to argue with. He advances. Anakin does not retreat. The first exchange lasts 4 seconds. Vader's opening is gem-so at its most aggressive. A diagonal overhead cut designed to end the engagement immediately, carrying the full mechanical enhanced strength of the suit behind it. Against a farm boy it would work. Against most Jedi it would work. Against a man who designed this exact sequence himself, who drilled it 10,000 times before it was fully formed. Who knows its weight and its angle and the exact moment at which its commitment becomes its vulnerability? Anakin is not there when it arrives. He is 45 degrees to Vader's left, already in the counter position, and he redirects the blade with a wrist movement so economical it looks like he barely tried. Vader's momentum carries him half a step past center. He recovers, faster than most beings can think, but the recovery costs him the initiative, and for 1 full second Darth Vader is reacting instead of acting. He has not reacted in a duel since he was 19 years old, and Obi-Wan was still faster than him. He attacks again, harder. Anakin matches him. Not aggressively, he is not trying to win this duel, not trying to end it, not attempting to press any advantage he has. He is running defense, the specific kind of defense that Obi-Wan spent years trying to teach him, and that he never fully valued until he became the thing it was designed to contain. He redirects, he sidesteps, he gives ground in increments, always moving toward the hangar junction, always buying seconds rather than winning exchanges. And he counters Vader's signature sequences before they finish, not because he's guessing, but because he knows, from the inside, exactly how they complete. Vader's third combination is a feint right, commit left, overhead finish that Anakin invented at 22 and was proud of for years. He sidesteps the feint before Vader's weight shifts. Vader stops. The red blade holds still in the corridor. The breathing does not change pace, but something in the force around Vader shifts. Not confusion, because Vader does not permit himself confusion, but a recalibration, a reclassification of threat level that Anakin can feel happening in real time. Vader is updating his model of what he is fighting. He is filing this away. He is doing, with his full intelligence, what Vader always does when something does not fit his existing categories. He pays closer attention. His next attack is different. He has stopped using familiar sequences. He is improvising now, genuinely improvising, and the improvised Vader is more dangerous than the patterned one, less readable, more adaptive, carrying the full weight of 20 years of actual combat experience rather than drilled form. He is fast. He is even now one of the finest duelists alive. Anakin pushes harder than he wants to, harder than is strictly tactically sound, giving more of himself than he planned, because improvised Vader cannot be countered from memory. A strike catches the wall beside his shoulder, close enough that he feels the heat of the blade through the sleeve. He disengages. 2 rapid steps back, a shift in the force he uses to put distance between them. Not flight, just space. The tactical kind. The kind that communicates I chose to stop rather than I had to stop. He puts 10 meters between them in the time it takes Vader to complete his follow-through. They face each other again. Vader is still. The red blade hums at his side. And Vader does something he has not done since the duel began. He looks at the boy. Actually looks, the way Vader looks when he is reading something rather than simply processing it. The suit's vocoder gives him no expression. The Force gives him everything. Anakin can feel it. The pressure of that attention. The weight of a formidable intelligence trying to solve a problem that does not fit any existing solution. A farm boy from Tatooine. Untrained. First duel. Who countered a combination no one alive has ever seen. Anakin hears the approach of the security teams behind him. Level 11, 90 seconds out. Too many for a clean exit. He hears simultaneously the distant ignition of the Falcon's engines from the hangar. R2 has convinced someone to open the docking bay doors. They are ready. He meets Vader's gaze across 10 meters of corridor. He lowers his blade 45 degrees. Not a surrender, not even close to a surrender. A message. The specific body language of a man who is choosing to stop rather than being stopped, delivered by someone who wants Vader to understand the difference. He steps backward into the side corridor, rounds the junction, and is gone. Vader stands in the empty hallway. The red blade is still lit. The security teams arrive from the north 30 seconds later, breathing hard from the run, and find their Dark Lord standing motionless at a junction with his weapon drawn, and no target present and no explanation immediately offered. They do not ask. They would not dare. They file the corridor, check the adjacent passages, report nothing. Vader says nothing for a long moment. The blade extinguishes. He is staring at the junction where the boy disappeared, with the absolute stillness of a man whose categories have just failed him. The efficiency was wrong. The angles were wrong. The specific quality of patience was wrong. Not a farm boy's patience, not a trained initiate's patience, but the patience of someone who fights below their ceiling deliberately, who holds back not from inability, but from strategy, who chooses how much to reveal the way a general chooses what intelligence to commit to in advance. He has fought 10,000 opponents in 19 years. He has never fought one that felt like looking into still water. He turns. He walks. He does not run, because Vader does not run, but his pace toward the communication suite is fractionally faster than his usual cadence. And no one in the corridor remarks on this, because no one in the corridor values their continued employment less than their continued breathing. He stops in the empty space of the intersection and says it to no one, quietly, the words dropping into the corridor hum and disappearing there. Where did you learn to move like that, boy? The station offers no answer. In Docking Bay 327, the Millennium Falcon's ramp is still extended when Anakin rounds the final junction at a run, not panicked, controlled, the run of someone who has timed this precisely and is arriving exactly when he intended. The bay is empty of guards. R2's work. Leia is at the top of the ramp, watching for him, and she does not say anything when he comes up it. Just steps aside, which is its own kind of statement. Obi-Wan is in the hold, standing with the stillness of a man who decided some time ago that he would not board until the boy he led into the station came back out of it. He looks at Anakin for a long moment when he enters. He looks at the lightsaber clipped to his belt. He does not say the name that is clearly on his face. He sits down. Han is already at the controls. The Falcon shudders, lifts, tears free of the docking clamps with a sound like an argument being settled. The bay doors are open. R2, Anakin notes, has been busy, and they are through them and into space before the bay's secondary locks engage. Somewhere beneath them, the Millennium Falcon tears free of the tractor beam's secondary hold and jumps to hyperspace. Anakin feels the boy's force signature vanish as the stars blur into lines, and Vader, standing motionless in a corridor of his own monument, is left with nothing but a question, and the particular silence of something he cannot file. He goes to find out who that was. The rebel base smells of jungle and machine oil, and the particular anxiety of people who have been waiting too long for something they cannot control. Yavin 4's atmosphere sits heavy and green around the ancient temple that serves as the Alliance's current headquarters, and the base itself is a study in organized desperation. Technicians running diagnostics on X-wings that need more than diagnostics, officers moving between stations with the focused urgency of people who have staked everything on a plan that has a very small margin. Anakin walks through it and feels the specific quality of its fear. He has commanded armies in fear. He knows what it smells like when people are about to fight something larger than themselves and have decided to do it anyway. He respects it more than he can say to any of them. General Dodonna's briefing room is cool and slightly too small for the number of pilots filling it. The holographic Death Star rotates above the central projector, slowly, perfectly, the size of a fist, looking almost abstract at this scale. Dodonna walks them through the attack plan with the methodical precision of a man who has done the mathematics and found one answer that works, barely, under ideal conditions. Anakin listens to the plan and says nothing for exactly as long as it takes to determine that it is not wrong, just incomplete. He raises his hand. Dodonna acknowledges him with the expression of a man who has been acknowledging volunteers from the back of briefing rooms for 30 years and has learned not to assume anything about what they will say. The womp rat analogy is imprecise, Anakin says. The exhaust port is 2 meters wide, but the targeting computer models a standard vertical approach. It's wrong for this geometry. He pauses. The port sits in a recessed channel. A vertical drop gives the station's surface batteries their best angle on the torpedo's flight path for the final 100 meters. The targeting computer won't account for this because the solution is outside standard engagement parameters. It requires an offset entry, not vertical, threading the channel rather than dropping into it. He looks at the rotating hologram. The computer will recommend the clean solution. The clean solution is the one that misses. Whoever makes the run needs to trust their read of the trench over the instrument. The room is quiet. Dodonna is looking at him. How do you know the port's geometry? The engineering schematics were in the data R2 carried from Scarif, Anakin says. I read them on the Falcon and worked the angles. He did not work the angles on the Falcon. He reviewed the station's infrastructure in another life, in a body he is no longer wearing, in a conference room where no one discussed thermal exhaust ports because no one imagined anyone would need to. But the geometry is real, and the solution is sound, and the distinction between where he learned it and what it is does not affect whether it saves lives today. The targeting computer is a liability on the final approach. The mission briefing should say so. Dodonna looks at him for a long moment. He updates the briefing. The pilots around Anakin make the specific sounds of people revising their probability of survival upward. It is a small sound. It matters enormously. From 2 rows back, Wedge Antilles is looking at him with an expression somewhere between gratitude and unsettlement. Anakin looks at the rotating Death Star above the projector. He has 4 hours until the station's approach puts Yavin 4 in range. He goes to his X-Wing. The flight line is noise and exhaust, and the organized chaos of a launch preparation done too fast with too little. Anakin walks his X-Wing with the same attention he walked the Falcon, hands on the hull, reading the machine through contact rather than instrument. She is a good ship. Nimble. Responsive. Built for a specific kind of pilot who thinks in 3 dimensions instinctively rather than learning it. He was flying before he was born, in the sense that midi-chlorians do not distinguish between instinct and training, and his relationship with atmospheric flight predates conscious memory. R2 settles into the astromech socket above and behind the cockpit with a series of sounds that translate, roughly, as readiness. Anakin settles into the seat. The cockpit closes around him with the specific intimacy of a well-fitted thing. He runs his own pre-flight, not the checklist, the actual pre-flight, hands on each system in sequence, reading response times and power curves and the specific personality of this particular ship's engine output, which runs 2% hot on the port side and compensates automatically in a way he will need to account for in close quarters maneuvering. He is ready before the launch signal. He sits in the closed cockpit and breathes and does the thing he has not allowed himself to do since he woke up in a farm boy's bed in a moisture farm on a desert planet that no longer feels like his. He thinks about what he is doing here. Not tactically. Not strategically. He thinks about Luke. The boy whose body this is. The boy who would have made this run with a targeting computer and faith, and the specific reckless courage of someone who has never been broken. Who would have made it anyway, because the Force does not require experience to speak through someone who is listening. Who would have grown into something that Anakin in his best years was reaching toward and never quite arrived at. He is going to make this run in that boy's body, and he is going to make it perfectly, and neither of those things will give Luke back to him. And he is going to do it anyway, because it is what he has. It is what he came back to do. The launch signal fires. He goes. The battle above Yavin is already a disaster by the time Red Squadron reaches the equatorial trench. Gold Squadron's trench team is gone, cut apart by Vader's TIE advanced from behind. The kills so fast and precise they barely registered as combat. 3 pilots who flew a straight line into a solution they couldn't see coming and didn't have the speed to outrun. The rest of Gold Squadron absorbed what surface fire could reach them on the approach and held their formation until there was no formation left to hold. 12 pilots, gone in the time it takes to report a target lock. The atmosphere on the comm channel shifts from organized urgency to the specific tight frequency of people who are afraid and have decided to be afraid quietly. Anakin processes this in real time, adjusting, recalculating the approach window. He takes the lead position in the trench without asking for it. Red Leader, this is Red 5, he says. I have the approach. Biggs, Wedge, cover my flanks. Don't match my speed in the trench, maintain interval at 40 meters and watch the canyon walls on the second bend. The targeting computer will pull you toward center. Stay left of its recommendation. A pause. Red Leader, Garvin Dryce, a capable pilot and a good man, makes a decision in approximately 2 seconds. Copy. Red 5. She's yours. He drops into the trench. The X-Wing fits it like a thought fits a mind. Perfectly, inevitably, with the specific sensation of arriving somewhere that was built to be arrived at. The trench walls come up on both sides, and the targeting reticle swarms with deflection data, and Anakin ignores everything it tells him and flies by the Force, which is to say he flies by the total integration of body and machine and the awareness that extends past both, that reads the trench the way he reads a duel, not move by move but as a whole, the shape of it. The conclusion toward which all the variables are moving. He picks off the first turret emplacement from 800 meters, the second from 600. The third he threads between without firing because the shot would clip Biggs's wing and the angle doesn't exist cleanly, so he doesn't take it and files it and moves on. And then the Force shifts. Something at the trench entrance. A TIE advanced, distinctive silhouette, markedly faster than anything else in the engagement, and a signature in the Force that arrives like a wall of cold water. Vader, dropping in behind them with 2 wingmen flanking, having calculated the intercept angle from somewhere above and behind, with the tactical precision of a man who has been doing this longer than the Rebel Alliance has existed. Anakin feels him before R2's warning systems register the approach. He does not break stride. Fighters behind us, he says on the comm. I have them. Biggs, Wedge, hold the run. Vader's first shot scorches past Red 5's port stabilizer close enough to degrade the shield rating on that quadrant by 30%. Anakin jinks left, not a panic jink, a calculated one. Moving to the angle where the TIE advanced forward cannon has the worst arc at this trench width. Vader adjusts. He is adapting in real time, the same thing he did in the Death Star corridor, reading the pattern and updating his model. He fires again. The shot clips R2's housing. R2 expresses his opinion at volume. Anakin finds the geometry. The TIE advanced at this speed, in this trench width, at the angle Vader is holding to maintain fire coverage. There is one moment, 2 seconds from now, when the canyon wall on the port side will force a micro-correction in his flight path that will open a window on the starboard engine assembly. Vader will not see it as a vulnerability because Vader thinks in terms of what he is doing, rather than what the environment will require him to do. This is a habit Anakin knows. He installed it in himself. He rolls to starboard at the precise moment. The shot catches Vader's starboard wing assembly at the joint, not through it, not a killing hit. A precision graze that triggers the automatic stabilization system and costs Vader 400 meters of approach distance while the TIE compensates. One wingman collides with the other in the sudden evasive scatter. Both are gone. Vader is alone and 400 meters back and compensating. The thermal exhaust port appears in the targeting reticle. Anakin cuts the targeting computer. R2 chirps, alarm, confusion, objection, all 3 at once. He breathes. He closes his eyes for exactly 1 second. He fires. The torpedoes enter the port along the channel's geometry, threading the approach the computer would never have chosen, and he is already pulling up and out of the trench before the first concussive wave reaches the surface. The X-Wing screams through the exit arc with Vader's disabled TIE somewhere below and behind, and then the Death Star begins its sequence from the inside out, a light that starts small and becomes everything, a sound that reaches them as vibration rather than noise, a pressure wave that shoves the X-Wing flat for 3 full seconds before the stabilizers catch. He levels out. He looks at what he has done. The Death Star is gone. A debris field where it was, expanding, glittering in Yavin's light. 2 billion tons of Imperial engineering reduced to components in the span of 20 seconds, taking with it the station's full crew complement, men doing their jobs, following their orders, serving the empire he helped build. The comm channel erupts, cheering, raw and uncontained, the sound of people who were very afraid and are now, improbably, not dead. Anakin does not join it. He sits in the quiet of the cockpit and looks at the debris field and thinks about a conference room on this station where he once stood and said nothing, while an admiral discussed the targeting solution for Alderaan. He thinks about all the names he doesn't know. He thinks about the fact that he has now destroyed his own monument twice, and the second time was necessary. And the second time is still going to cost him something that he doesn't have a word for. He thinks about Luke. R2 makes a sound that, across all the translation barriers available, manages to convey something like, "Are you all right?" "No," Anakin says. The debris field turns slowly in the dark. "Take us in," he says. "They'll want to celebrate." He flies toward the jungle moon and carries the weight of it alone, the way he has carried everything. The way he is trying to stop. The X-Wing breaks atmosphere into green. Not the green of living things arranged pleasantly. The green of a planet that never negotiated with its own biology. That simply grew and kept growing until every surface was claimed. And every surface beneath that surface was also claimed. And the air itself carries moisture like a second atmosphere, sitting inside the first. Dagobah from above looks like a wound that healed wrong. It looks like somewhere that things come to be forgotten. Anakin knows exactly where he is going. He sets the X-Wing down in the clearing he knows, the only clearing large enough, on the western edge of the swamp basin, 30 meters from a structure that barely qualifies as shelter and contains the greatest living mind in the history of the Jedi Order. R2 runs a surface scan and delivers his professional assessment of the atmosphere, the terrain, and the overall habitability of this location with the efficiency of a droid that has strong opinions and no diplomatic training. "I know," Anakin says. He climbs out of the cockpit and drops to the ground and stands in the wet heat for a moment, letting the planet register him. Dagobah's force presence is enormous and strange, old, layered. The accumulated resonance of a living ecosystem so dense it generates its own force signature, distinct and deep. And inside it, contained within a hut at the edge of the clearing, something small and extraordinarily bright. He walks toward it. The door opens before he knocks. Yoda is sitting on a root that has shaped itself, over decades, into something approaching a chair. He is eating something from a pot that smells of vegetation and effort. He looks up at the man filling his doorway with the expression of someone who was expecting this, and decided to have dinner anyway. He does not do the routine. He looks at Anakin for a long moment, the young face, the old eyes, the specific quality of stillness that does not belong to a boy of 20, or 30, or 40. That belongs to something that has been still for a very long time, and has learned to carry the stillness the way other beings carry their names. Yoda sets down his pot. "Sit," he says. Anakin sits, folding himself into the low space of the hut, with the automatic adaptation of someone who has spent time in spaces built for other species. He looks at Yoda. Yoda looks at him. The silence between them is not the silence of a test. It is the silence of two beings who have both decided, independently, that performance is a waste of the time they have. "Expected you. I did not," Yoda says. "And yet," he tilts his head. "Surprised? I am not. I need to complete my training," Anakin says. "Not a farm boy's training. Not an initiate's curriculum. I need what's missing from what I already have, and I believe you know what that is." Yoda is quiet for a breath. Very specific, he says, for a boy who has never trained. "I've been training since I was 9 years old." The hut absorbs this. Yoda reaches out. The mind touch is not aggressive, it is never aggressive with Yoda, which is what makes it so complete. He does not push. He simply opens a connection with the gentle, inexorable patience of someone who has been doing this for nearly 9 centuries, and has learned that resistance is information, rather than an obstacle. He touches the surface of what Anakin is carrying and reads it the way a river reads a landscape, not by forcing anything, but by finding where things flow naturally. He finds the Senate chamber. He finds Mustafar. He finds 20 years of a respirator's rhythm and Padme's voice in the moment before it stopped, and Order 66 and the temple and the children. He finds the second Death Star. He finds Luke's face from below, lit by the light of a space station coming apart. He withdraws. He is silent for a long time. When he opens his eyes, something in them has changed. Not broken. Because Yoda does not break, but shifted, the way a mountain shifts in an earthquake. The structure remains and the damage is real, and both things are true simultaneously. He looks at Anakin Skywalker wearing his son's face, and his expression contains 900 years of a life spent watching the Force make choices that no being would have chosen. And it contains, beneath that, something simpler and more devastating. Grief, Anakin Skywalker, he says. Quietly, the name lands in the hut with the weight of something that has not been spoken aloud in 19 years. And the weight is different than Anakin expected. Not accusation, not horror, just recognition. The specific pain of recognizing someone you loved in a form you didn't anticipate. Thought dead. You were. A pause. Worse than dead, perhaps. Anakin does not look away. I was both, Master. I chose to come back as neither. Yoda is still for a long moment. Then he makes a sound. Small, involuntary, not quite a word. The sound of 900 years of composure encountering something it did not prepare for and absorbing it without theater. He folds his hands. He breathes. Your son's face, he says. His body. His life. His remaining life. Anakin says. Yes. And him. Luke, where? I don't know. He says it without flinching, because flinching would be a way of managing what this costs, and he has decided not to manage it. He carries it flat, visible, the way the weight technique works, not the emotion stated, but the thing it does to the body. His hands, in his lap, are completely still, the way hands are still when their owner is using everything available to keep them that way. I came back, and he wasn't here anymore. I don't know if that's the Force's design or my theft. I have lived with that every day since I woke up. Yoda looks at his hands. A heavy thing, Yoda says. To carry alone, this has been. Yes, he tells it from the beginning. Not strategically, not the curated version that protects the necessary parts and sacrifices the others. He tells it the way a man who has been silent for 19 years tells something when the first person who can actually hear it sits across from him in a swamp on a planet that smells of wet earth and old Force, completely, and without management. He tells Yoda about Palpatine. About Shmi. About the visions of Padme dying that Palpatine used like a key in a lock he had been building himself for years. About the moment in the council chamber, when Mace Windu died and the door closed on everything Anakin Skywalker had been, and Darth Vader stepped out of the wreckage. About the temple. He does not spare himself the temple. Yoda listens without speaking. His eyes, as Anakin talks, become something other than the acute observational instruments that run Yoda's standard engagement with the world. They become the eyes of someone who is being told things they already suspected and were not prepared to have confirmed, and who has sufficient mastery of themselves to remain present for all of it, rather than retreating into the comfort of judgment. When Anakin finishes, the hut is completely quiet. Yoda's composure is intact. It is intact the way a thing is intact after something has moved through it, the structure present, the interior permanently rearranged. His ears, which have been slightly raised through the recounting, settle. Order 66, he says. My fault, this was. Saw the darkness in the order, felt the corruption, chose the war over the wound. He pauses. Pride. My pride. He closes his eyes briefly. Mea culpa, this is. Mine and the council's and the order that trained you and did not know what it held. Anakin says nothing. Blame yourself, you do, Yoda says. And right, you are. And wrong. He opens his eyes. Many hands, the dark side required. Yours among them. not yours alone. The thing in Anakin's chest does not release, but it shifts. Something shifts. Train you I will, Yoda says. But not what a youngling receives. He rises from the root chair with the ease of a being for whom gravity is a suggestion, and moves to the low shelf where his few possessions are arranged with the precise minimalism of a man who has had nearly 9 centuries to determine what matters. What remains, we complete. The edge you carry, grief made into action, power without peace. This we address. He turns. The Force brought you back, yes. But why, do you know? Atonement, Anakin says. Yoda's head tilts. Atonement performed as protection. Yes, but also, he pauses, and something moves through his expression that is not quite a smile but occupies the same territory. Ancient and particular. Perhaps the Force trusts you, Anakin, more than you trust yourself. Unusual, that would be. Anakin looks at him. Unusual for me specifically, he says. Yes, Yoda says, without the smile becoming more or less than it is. Specifically you. The training lasts 9 days. Not initiates training. Not forms and philosophy and the patient construction of a foundation. Yoda takes what Anakin has, which is considerable, and addresses exactly what he said he would address. The places where power runs ahead of peace, where action is clean, and the aftermath is unexamined. He teaches in the way of a being who has nearly 9 centuries of accumulated method, and has stopped being precious about the sequence. He teaches what is needed. On the 7th day, in the clearing by the X-Wing, Anakin sits in meditation for 4 hours and does not move, and Yoda sits across from him for all 4 hours, and at the end, Yoda says nothing, which is its own form of evaluation. On the 9th day, Anakin packs the X-Wing. Yoda stands at the clearing's edge and watches. Bespin, Anakin says. It is not a question. Yes, Yoda says. End this before it ends others. You must. But remember, he pauses. The swamp breathes around them, wet and enormous and old. The suit, the man inside it. Both are yours to address. One you cannot kill, one you must reach. Anakin looks at him across the clearing. I know, he says. Go, Yoda says. And Anakin. He waits until Anakin turns. Forgive yourself enough to finish this. Just enough. The rest, afterward, we determine. Anakin holds his gaze for a moment. He climbs into the X-Wing. The engines wake. The ship rises through the green canopy with R2 whistling something that translates as cautious encouragement, and then Dagobah is below and shrinking, and the stars open above, and Anakin sets a course for Bespin with the specific calm of a man who has, for the first time in a very long time, a plan that does not require him to be Vader to execute. He has a different plan. He is going to try being Anakin. Cloud City rises from Bespin's atmosphere, like a thought someone forgot to finish. The platform city floats in the habitable band of a gas giant, suspended above clouds that glow amber and rose in the perpetual filtered light of a sun that never quite reaches the surface of anything here. It is beautiful in the way that things built for commerce are occasionally beautiful, incidentally, as a byproduct of function rather than intention. The Tabana gas mining platforms descend below the city's belly like roots, and above them the promenades and landing bays and administrative levels stack in concentric rings, and the whole structure turns slowly, almost imperceptibly, oriented by the weather rather than any fixed point. Anakin has been here before. Not in this body, in the suit, in the other life, descending on a Lambda-class shuttle with a garrison of stormtroopers, and a plan that used Lando Calrissian's fear as its primary operational tool. He remembers the corridors. He remembers the carbon freezing chamber at the city's industrial base. He remembers arriving as the Predator and finding that the role fit perfectly, because in those years everything fit perfectly as long as it required nothing from him, except efficiency. He descends now in the X-Wing, alone, with stolen Imperial authorization codes in R2's memory banks, and a different plan entirely. Lando Calrissian meets him on the landing platform with the smile of a man who has been running percentages since the moment the unauthorized X-Wing appeared on his approach sensors. He is impeccably dressed. He moves with the specific physical confidence of someone who has survived by reading rooms faster than the rooms read him. And he is reading Anakin now with the full attention of a man whose primary instrument for self-preservation is his ability to assess what he is actually dealing with before committing to a position. The smile does not reach his eyes, which are doing serious work. Administrator Calrissian, Anakin says. Lando, he says. Administrator is what I call myself when I'm trying to impress someone. He tilts his head. You don't look like someone I need to impress. You don't. Anakin agrees. Lando studies him. A boy. Young, slight, wearing the unremarkable jacket of a rebel pilot, arriving alone on a landing platform in a city that operates on the principle of beneficial ambiguity, friendly to everyone, committed to no one, surviving by ensuring that the most dangerous thing nearby never has a reason to look directly at it. The most dangerous thing nearby is about to look directly at it. I need the carbon freezing chamber, Anakin says, off the books. 48 hours of restricted access. In exchange, I can offer you advance notice of an Imperial fleet movement that is going to make Bespin's current arrangement untenable, along with the window to negotiate before it arrives, rather than after. Lando's smile does not change. His eyes change. That's a very specific offer, he says, for someone who just landed without clearance. I land where I need to be, Anakin says. I'm being precise, because you're intelligent and I don't have time to negotiate through indirection. The Empire is coming to Bespin regardless of what either of us does. I'm offering you the difference between being caught in what's coming and being positioned ahead of it. He meets Lando's eyes. 48 hours. The chamber. Restricted access. Lando is quiet for a long moment. Who are you? He asks. Not hostile, the genuine question of a man who has encountered something that does not fit his existing categories and wants the missing information. Someone with experience you don't want to disbelieve, Anakin says. Lando looks at him for 3 full seconds. He looks at the X-Wing. He looks back at the boy with the old eyes and the complete absence of any of the nervousness that people Anakin's apparent age are supposed to carry when they are operating this far outside their weight class. 48 hours, Lando says. He sends Han away first. He does it over dinner, Lando's dining room, good food. The kind of easy grace that Cloud City deploys when it wants to communicate that everything is fine and nothing requires immediate concern. Han is across the table with Leia beside him, both of them carrying the specific alertness of people who are trying to enjoy a meal and cannot stop working. Chewbacca occupies a chair that is not quite large enough. Anakin waits until the food has settled the room slightly, until the quality of vigilance has dropped 2 degrees towards something approaching ease, and then he says he needs to run a reconnaissance sweep of the city's eastern docking bays. Imperial traffic patterns suggest a listening post in that sector, and he wants to verify before they make any moves. Han says he'll come. No, Anakin says, not sharp. Level, the specific register of someone who has thought about this more thoroughly than the conversation reveals. If the post is active and we go together, we lose the element of discretion. One person, no weapon signature, looks like a tourist. I need you to stay with Leia. Han looks at him. In the months since the Death Star, in the incremental renegotiation of their dynamic that has happened without either of them naming it, Han Solo has developed a specific look that he deploys when Anakin says something he disagrees with, but cannot counter tactically. It is the look of a man conceding a point he finds personally objectionable. He concedes the point. Leia is watching Anakin with the expression she has worn in his vicinity since the cell block, that narrow, precise attention, the one that belongs entirely to her and to no one she inherited it from because she built it herself. The look of a woman who suspects she is missing information and is working backwards from available data to find it. She does not ask the question she is running. She files it. Be careful, she says. He holds her gaze for 1 moment longer than the situation requires. Always, he says, and it is the most honest thing he has said to her since her name and her face and the fact of her existence rearranged the landscape of everything he was trying to be. He leaves the dining room and does not look back, because looking back would cost him the forward momentum he needs to carry the next part of what is coming. The carbon freezing chamber is cold and blue and industrial. It is not a room designed for human occupancy in any extended sense. The Tabana gas processing apparatus fills most of the space, pipes and venting mechanisms and the central platform above the freezing pit, where the gas is compressed and super-chilled and used to encase whatever the operators need encased. The lighting is the specific blue of deep cold, the color of something functioning at the extreme edge of what physics permits. Anakin stands in the center of it. He has been standing here for 2 hours. Lando's people cleared the chamber at his request and sealed the access points and posted no guards, because Anakin told Lando exactly what he needed them to do, and Lando, who has survived this long by knowing when someone is operating from a position of genuine information rather than bluster, did it. The chamber hums around him. The Tabana feeds. The blue light does not change. He is rehearsing. Not what to say. He has known what to say since he woke up in a bed too small on a planet that smells of sand. He is rehearsing the thing that cannot be scripted, which is how to stand in front of the fact of Darth Vader and remain Anakin rather than becoming what the confrontation wants to make him. Every fight in him, every year of gem-so and tactical violence and the cold competence that Vader refined from Anakin's own gifts, wants to approach what is coming as a combat problem. He has to approach it as something else, something he is less practiced at. He has 19 years of buried rage for Palpatine, and 19 years of buried grief for Padme, and he does not have 19 years of anything for Vader, except the specific horror of recognition, that the thing in the suit is him, was him, is a version of choices he made that kept making themselves after he stopped consciously making them. Rage does not work on a mirror. He has to come to this with something harder to sustain: patience and truth. And the memory of Luke's face from below, in the light of a dying space station, forgiving someone who had not earned it. Come home then, he thinks, in the direction of nothing, in the direction of the presence he can already feel at the edge of his awareness, not arrived yet, but coming, crossing the distance between an Imperial fleet and a gas-mining city at the pace of someone who does not hurry. Let's finish what we started on the sand. R2 chirps from the chamber's service access. 3 short pulses. The signal Anakin programmed yesterday. Inbound, 20 minutes. He breathes. He looks at the central platform, at the freezing pit below it, at the blue light playing across the pipes and the machinery, and the operational geometry of a room built to preserve things in permanent suspension. He thinks about what it would mean to freeze Vader here, in this room, before the confrontation, whether that is mercy or cowardice or simply pragmatism, and concludes that it is none of those things, because Vader frozen is not Vader reached. And reaching him is the only version of this that saves anything worth saving. He stands in the center of the chamber. He waits. The city turns slowly in the amber light outside, and somewhere in the atmosphere below the platform, an Imperial shuttle begins its descent, carrying the presence that fills the Force the way a black hole fills space. Enormous and inevitable, and built from a man who is still in there. Anakin knows. Because Anakin is the man, and the man is still in there. The chamber doors at the far end begin to open. The blue light spills across the threshold and into the corridor beyond. And in that corridor, breathing, enormous, moving with the absolute certainty of something that has decided what this is before it arrives. Vader steps through. The doors seal behind him. For the first time in 20 years, Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader stand in the same room. Neither speaks. The freezing chamber hums between them, cold and blue and patient. Vader moves first. He always moves first. 20 years of ending duels before they become duels has calcified this into reflex. The advance, the pressure, the immediate establishment of a gravitational field that pulls everything in the room toward his agenda. He crosses half the distance between them before Anakin has ignited his blade, and the red lightsaber comes up in the high guard of a man who intends to end this in 3 exchanges, and has the physical architecture to make that intention credible. Anakin ignites. Blue against red in the cold chamber. The light doubles and shifts, 2 colors throwing competing shadows across the pipes and the freezing platform and the walls that have no opinion about what is happening between them. Vader's first strike comes down from the high guard with the full mechanical enhanced weight of the suit behind it, the kind of blow that ends conversations. That Anakin has seen fold durasteel plating and shatter cortosis blades and compress the guard of every opponent Vader has faced since Mustafar into a kind of structural honesty about the difference between their capabilities and his. Anakin redirects it. The same economy he used on the Death Star. The same wrist rotation. The same 45-degree deflection that bleeds Vader's momentum sideways rather than absorbing it. Because absorbing it would be a contest of strength, and that contest has one outcome. Vader's blade passes within 15 centimeters of Anakin's shoulder and buries itself briefly in the piping behind him, and in the half-second it takes Vader to extract and reset. Anakin steps inside and touches the back of Vader's gauntlet with the flat of his blade, a tag, not a cut, and steps back out. A point of contact. A message. I could have. Vader understands. He is not a being who misses tactical communication. The reset is fractionally slower than his usual, which in Vader's economy means something significant is being processed behind the mask. He attacks again, different rhythm, abandoning the Gemso opener for a lateral combination that has ended 17 duels in 14 years. A sequence that generates 3 simultaneous threat axes and requires the opponent to choose which one to address first. Anakin addresses all 3. He is inside the combination before it completes, moving with it rather than against it. Using Vader's own momentum to open the space he needs, and again the deflection, again the controlled economy, and again the tag, this time to the chest plate, flat of the blade, unmistakable, and again. Vader stops. The breathing fills the chamber. The red blade holds at his side and his head tilts the specific few degrees that Anakin knows, that Anakin invented, before the suit straightened the neck and removed the unconscious habit, when he is doing the deep calculation. Reassessing, feeling, the presence in the force around Vader shifts from the gravitational certainty of a predator closing on prey to something with more texture, something that has encountered a variable it did not budget for. He attacks differently. He goes to the improvised approach, the one he used in the Death Star corridor, abandoning drilled form entirely for the accumulated intelligence of 20 years of actual combat. Raw, adaptive, genuinely dangerous in a way that drilled sequences cannot be, because drilled sequences are, at their foundation, knowable. This Vader is not knowable in the same way. They trade for 30 seconds that feel longer. Anakin gives ground, controlled retreat toward the freezing platform, each step deliberate, the running calculation in his mind measuring distance and angle and the geometry of what he is building toward. A graze catches his left arm. Not deep. He does not react to it. He files the damage and continues. And then he speaks. She asked for you. The words drop into the chamber underneath the sound of the blades. Vader's next strike arrives half a beat late. Anakin does not press the opening. He steps back, gives space, holds his blade in a guard that communicates he is not attacking, and says it again. Clearly, without performance, the way a man states a fact he has carried alone for a very long time and is finally setting down. Padem. At the end. She said you were still good. He holds Vader's gaze across the space between them. She was dying, and she spent what she had left on the argument that there was still something worth reaching in you. She died, believing that. The red blade is still. The breathing continues its rhythm. The suit has no expression. The force around Vader is doing something Anakin has no clean category for. Not anger, not grief. Something that precedes both of those. Something that is happening below the architecture of identity that Darth Vader has spent 19 years constructing over the top of Anakin Skywalker. In the substrate beneath that construction. You're going to tell me, Vader says, his vocoder giving the words their characteristic resonance, that she forgave me. No. Anakin says. She didn't have enough information to forgive you. She had enough love to believe in you. Those are different things. He pauses. She was right about one, and she never got to find out she was right. Vader moves. Not with the attack's rhythm, with something rawer, faster, less controlled than anything Anakin has seen from him in this timeline or the last. The combination is powerful and slightly ragged at the edges, the specific quality of a strike thrown by someone whose calculation has been compromised by something they are refusing to name. Anakin absorbs it fully, matching the increased force, giving nothing back, and they are locked for 3 full seconds, blade to blade, faces 30 centimeters apart. Anakin speaks into the space between them. Obi-Wan wept, he says, quietly, on Mustafar. After, he sat on the bank for a long time before he left. Did you know that? He didn't tell anyone. He just sat there. He holds the lock. He's been sitting there ever since. The lock breaks. Vader steps back. Not retreating, something more fundamental than retreat. The movement of a body whose operator is dealing with something that cannot be processed and fought at the same time. The red blade comes up again immediately, the form reasserting itself over whatever is trying to surface, but the form is a half beat behind now, maintaining itself by effort rather than instinct. Anakin lowers his blade. Not all the way. Not a surrender. The 45-degree drop that says I am choosing this pause rather than you have imposed it. I know what Palpatine told you on the operating table, he says. When you woke up in the suit for the first time and asked about Padam. I know what he said, and I know the expression on his face when he said it, and I know you felt in that moment that there was nothing left, and that the suit was not a prison. Because a prison implies there is still someone worth containing. He breathes. He was wrong. And he knew he was wrong. And he chose his words specifically to make you unable to access the part of you that could have reached back. Vader has not attacked. The red blade hums in his hand, held at his side now, and the presence in the Force around him is doing something that Anakin has not felt from this source in 20 years. Something that has no armor over it. That is happening without the mediation of the suit's cold efficiency. You know these things, Vader says, because it is not a question. It is a man arriving at a conclusion he has been refusing for 30 seconds and can no longer logistically refuse. Anakin says, I am your father. The chamber takes the words and holds them. Vader is motionless. The breathing does not change pace, because the suit governs the breathing, and the suit does not have feelings about what it is hearing, but the Force signature around him goes completely still. Not the stillness of control, but the stillness of something that has stopped, because it has hit something solid. I am your father, Anakin says again. The same level register, nothing theatrical in it. And I am done running from you. He reaches into the Force. Not as a weapon, not as a push or a pull or any of the 1,000 uses he has put it to in 20 years of war. He reaches with the specific quality of intention that Yoda spent 9 days helping him find, the part that is neither Anakin's power nor Vader's power, but the place where both of them began. Before the war and the fear and the desperate terrible love that Palpatine turned into a key. He sends the memory. Not narrated. Not explained. The raw sensory fact of it, Luke's face from below in the light of the second Death Star. Tear-streaked. Young. Absolutely certain in the way of someone who has decided something that cannot be undecided. Luke's voice saying, I've got to save you with the specific quality of an argument that has already won, because it is not built on logic, but on something that does not require logic to function. The feeling of Luke's hands, the feeling of something in the chest that is not a metaphor, a literal sensation, physical, like a door opening in a wall that has been sealed for 2 decades. And Anakin himself, in that moment choosing, he sends all of it. And at the center of it, the specific emotional fact, your son forgave you 19 years before you earn it, and he was right to. Vader makes a sound. Not words. Not processed through the vocoder's translation. Something underneath the engineering. Something the suit was not designed to contain and cannot quite. The red blade drops. Not lowered. Dropped. The hand releasing it, and the blade extinguishing as it falls, and the physical posture of the suit shifting in a way that Anakin has never in any timeline seen, the shoulders dropping, the head coming fractionally forward, the specific geometry of a large body that has been held at maximum tension for 19 years, releasing that tension all at once. Vader goes to his knees, The carbon-freezing chamber is completely quiet except for the mechanical breathing and the hum of the Tabana apparatus, and the mechanical breathing is doing something it has never done in the years it has existed. It is catching. Fractionally, irregularly, as though something inside the system is interfering with the automated rhythm. Something that the engineers who built this equipment did not account for, because the equipment was designed for Darth Vader and not for a man who is remembering, against everything the last 19 years argued, that he is something other than Darth Vader. Anakin stands in front of him. He does not speak. He waits, the way Yoda waited in the clearing, with the specific quality of presence that does not require anything from the person it is offered to, not performance, not speed, not a particular form of response, just the fact of being there. The breathing steadies. Slowly, the masked face comes up. When Vader speaks, the vocoder gives the word its resonance, its mechanical precision. And underneath the engineering, barely, the way a voice sounds when it has been unused for a very long time and is finding its way back to something it does not entirely remember how to do. Anakin. The Emperor feels it happen. Somewhere in the Imperial Palace on Coruscant, in a throne room built to communicate the irreversibility of power. Darth Sidious opens his eyes and sits forward and feels through the Force bond what his apprentice is experiencing. Not the specifics, not the content, but the quality of it, which is enough. He has maintained this bond for 19 years, with the care of a gardener maintaining something that produces exactly what he needs it to produce. And he knows the texture of Vader's presence the way a musician knows a specific instrument. Every resonance and limitation catalogued and accounted for. What he feels now has no account. It takes him 4 seconds to decide. 4 seconds is, for Palpatine, an eternity of visible uncertainty, and there is no one in the throne room to observe it, which is fortunate for the continued health of everyone in the throne room. He rises. He opens a channel to the nearest Star Destroyer. His voice, when it comes, is the voice of a man who has spent 80 years ensuring that urgency never shows. Set course for Bespin, he says. Maximum speed. All available ships. He closes the channel. He stands in his throne room and looks at nothing for a moment. Calculating. Running the variables with the full intelligence of the most dangerous mind in the galaxy. Something has reached his apprentice. Something has gotten inside the architecture he constructed so carefully, that he has maintained so precisely, that he believed. With the specific confidence of a man who has never once been surprised by his own machinery breaking, was permanent. He does not know what. He knows it must be corrected immediately or not at all. Anakin hears the fleet before R2 confirms it. He is sitting on the floor of the carbon-freezing chamber, across from Vader, who has not risen from his knees and has not been asked to. And the Force opens around him like a weather system changing, the cold, organized pressure of an Imperial fleet dropping from hyperspace, multiple ships, moving fast and without the deliberate pace of a standard deployment. Emergency speed. Palpatine, earlier than he calculated. The bond between Vader and Palpatine works both directions. He should have accounted for that more precisely. He rises. He's coming. Vader looks up. The mask gives him nothing. The Force gives Anakin everything. The specific quality of Vader processing this information, the calculation happening behind the suit's stillness, and something else, something new in the last 20 minutes, a quality of intention that is no longer organized around Palpatine's architecture. The bond has been the load-bearing wall of everything Vader is. Something in him is deciding, right now, what to build without it. How long? Vader says. 20 minutes. Maybe less. Anakin looks at the chamber's sealed doors. He'll come to the city personally. He won't send officers for this. No, Vader says. He won't. He rises. The suit's full height fills the chamber again, the physical presence of it unchanged, still enormous, still built to communicate the end of arguments, but the presence in the Force is different now, in the way that a loaded weapon is different from an unloaded one, even when the physical object is identical. Something has been set down. Something else has been, quietly and without theater, picked up. Anakin looks at him. You don't have to be in this room when he arrives, Anakin says. You can take a ship. Go anywhere. "I can handle, no," Vader says. The word is flat and certain in the way that Vader's words are always flat and certain, but the certainty is coming from somewhere different than it came from an hour ago. "This is mine to finish." A pause. "He made me. I unmake the arrangement. That is how this works." Anakin is quiet for a moment. "Together," he says. Vader looks at him. "The mask as always gives nothing. The Force gives everything. And what it gives is the specific texture of a man finding, in a word he has not applied to himself in 19 years, something that fits." "Together," Vader says. R2's signal comes 11 minutes later, 3 long pulses, the code for immediate extraction required, which means Han has either figured out what is happening or Lando has briefed him, and either way the Falcon is prepped and the group is moving toward the landing platform. Anakin opens the comm. "Get everyone to the ship," he says. "Lando, I'm calling in the second half of our arrangement. Get your people off the levels nearest the docking ports, the ones Palpatine will use. Now, not in 10 minutes. Lando's voice comes back with the specific efficiency of a man who has been running contingencies since the moment the Imperial fleet appeared on his sensors. "Already moving. What are you doing?" "Finishing something." A pause. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." "Get them out, Lando." He closes the channel. Palpatine arrives the way he always arrives, without announcement, without the ceremony of military deployment, simply present. The way a fundamental force of nature is present, not entering a room so much as the room becoming the space he occupies. His royal guard precede him into the carbon-freezing chamber in their red silence, 8 of them, moving with the practiced precision of men who function as architecture rather than security, the visual grammar of absolute power, present to communicate rather than to defend. He stops when he sees them both. The calculation runs in his eyes, quick, invisible to anyone not watching for it, and Anakin is watching for it because he has spent 20 years learning to read those eyes, learning the specific quality of micro-adjustment that Palpatine makes when a variable has exceeded his model. It lasts less than a second. Then the composed ancient face settles into the expression it wears when Palpatine has decided that he is still in control and intends to perform that certainty until it becomes true. "Fascinating," he says. His eyes move between them. "A ghost in my apprentice's enemy's body. The Force has a peculiar sense of theater." "It does," Anakin says. "I've noticed. And you came to Bespin to do what, exactly? Remind my apprentice of his former sentimentality?" The voice carries its usual register, warm, almost paternal, the specific warmth of something that uses warmth as a tool, and has done so for so long that the instrument and the intention are indistinguishable. "I'm afraid you'll find that project more difficult than you anticipated." "I already finished it," Anakin says. Palpatine looks at Vader, and Palpatine, who has not been genuinely surprised in 40 years, who has run the galaxy's largest engine of manipulation, with the confidence of a man who knows exactly what every variable will do because he selected every variable, sees in the Force signature of his apprentice something he did not put there and cannot immediately account for. The warmth leaves his face. What replaces it is older, truer, the thing underneath the performance, which is not evil in the theatrical sense, but simply the absolute structural conviction that all other beings exist as instruments, and that an instrument which has stopped functioning for its designed purpose is a problem requiring immediate correction. He moves. The Royal Guard come first. Vader takes them, not with hesitation, not with the fractional uncertainty of a being acting against 19 years of installed loyalty. He moves with the complete, decisive authority of a man who has made a choice, and has brought the full weight of everything he is to the execution of it. The Guard are exceptional, the finest close-quarters combatants in the Imperial military, trained for exactly this kind of engagement, accustomed to opponents who are afraid of what they represent. Vader is not afraid of what they represent. He built what they represent. He takes them in pairs, efficient, brutal, the gemso that Anakin invented applied with the enhancement of the suit's strength, and the full tactical intelligence of a man who was already the greatest duelist of his generation, before the suit added 20% to everything. 4 in the first exchange. 3 in the second. The 8th breaks for the door, and Vader closes the distance in 2 strides, and that is finished. Palpatine watches. And then Palpatine attacks. The lightning is blue-white and enormous, the full expression of his power uncontained, the kind of output Anakin saw him deploy once, in a Senate chamber, in another life. It comes for Vader first, the apprentice, the instrument, the betrayal requiring immediate punishment. Anakin steps in front of it. He takes it on the blade. The Force flows through him from the contact point down his arms, and he does not redirect it, does not absorb it. He holds it. The way Yoda taught him to hold the things that are trying to break him. In the 9 days in the swamp. Not by resisting their force, but by being more present than the force they carry. By occupying the moment so completely that there is no space in it for the thing that wants to replace you. The lightning holds. Palpatine increases the output. Anakin's arms are shaking. The blue blade flickers. The Force is moving through him at a volume that is not comfortable, and is not designed to be comfortable, and is making a structural argument about the limits of what a human body can conduct, regardless of what the mind inside it has learned. He holds. Vader moves. He comes from Palpatine's left, where the lightning output has opened an angle that Palpatine cannot cover without diverting power from the primary stream, and Palpatine makes the calculation and does not divert. Because diverting means losing the kill on Anakin. And losing the kill on Anakin means losing control of the entire situation. And Palpatine has spent 80 years ensuring that he never loses control of the entire situation. He miscalculates by one variable. He does not account for a redeemed man. Vader reaches Palpatine at the reactor shaft access, the one Anakin positioned them toward over the last 40 seconds, in the incremental geometry of a controlled retreat that was never a retreat. Vader's arms go around him. The grip of the suit, the full mechanical force of it, closing, Palpatine's lightning redirects, finding Vader now, arcing across the suit's systems in the specific horrible way that Anakin has seen once before in a future that is now being revised. Vader does not release his grip. He looks at Anakin, across the distance, while the lightning does what it does to the suit and to the man inside it. The mask gives nothing. The Force gives everything. What it gives is the specific quality of a choice made clearly and completely and without the shadow of compulsion, the way choices are supposed to be made, the way Anakin made so few of his. He steps backward over the shaft. They fall. Anakin is on his knees before they hit the bottom. He does not know exactly when he moved. He is simply there, at the shaft's edge, and the Force tells him what the distance confirms. It is over. Palpatine is gone, in the way that the Force simply registers certain presences ceasing, not dramatically but with the flat factual completeness of a signal terminating. Vader is not gone. Vader is dying, which is different, and the difference is everything. He finds him below, via the service ladder in the chamber at the shaft's base. He is as he was on the Death Star, the suit compromised, the breathing labored, the machinery of his survival losing the argument it has been winning for 19 years. Anakin sits beside him on the floor of the chamber and does not perform calm because calm is not what this moment is. This moment is what it is, which is a father and a son in a room where one of them is leaving. Vader's hand finds his arm. "You came back," Vader says. The vocoder is damaged, giving the words a fractured quality, the engineering failing around the voice. "For this. For you," Anakin says. "For Luke. For the thing we were supposed to be." The breathing slows. "Tell her," Vader says. "Leia, tell her I'll tell her," Anakin says. "I promise." The hand on his arm releases. The breathing stops. Darth Vader died on the second Death Star forgiving the galaxy. Anakin Skywalker died on Bespin having earned it. Anakin stays on the floor of the chamber for a long time. He finds them on the landing platform. Han, Leia, Chewie, Lando. In the amber light of Bespin's permanent filtered afternoon, the Falcon behind them with its ramp down and its engines ticking with residual heat. The Imperial fleet is holding position, captainless now, running the standard protocol of an officer corps that has received no orders and is waiting for someone to tell them what to do next. Leia sees his face. She crosses to him without speaking and stands close. reading him with the specific attention she has been applying to him since a cell block on a Death Star. And what she reads now is enough that she doesn't ask the first question. She asks the one beneath it. Who are you, really? He looks at her for a long moment. The twin suns of Tatooine are 40 light years away. He will not go back. There is nothing there now that requires him. No sand, no farm, no ghost of a childhood that was never really his. What is here is a galaxy that still needs someone to hold it while it finds its footing, and a daughter who deserves the father she was owed, and a Jedi Order that does not exist yet and will need someone to build it who knows every way it can go wrong. I'm the man your father should have been, he says. The amber light of Bespin falls across his son's face, which is his face now, which he will carry forward into whatever comes next. I intend to spend the rest of this life proving it. Leia holds his gaze. She nods once, the specific nod of a woman who has decided to accept an answer that is incomplete, because she understands, with the instinct of someone who has been navigating incomplete information her whole life, that complete answers are a luxury, and this one is true. She takes his arm. They walk up the ramp together, into the ship, into whatever the galaxy becomes next. Behind them, Bespin turns in its amber light, patient and indifferent, floating above clouds that glow like the end of something and the beginning of something else, which is what endings always are, if you survive them. The ramp closes. The Falcon rises. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.